Hi, and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review for Dark Matter Season 2, Episode 3, I've Seen the Other Side of You. This video is a part of a series of videos where I review episodes of Dark Matter, so I'll have to give a spoiler warning for all of Dark Matter up to Season 2, Episode 3. If you haven't seen up to this point, you may not want to watch this video, otherwise some things may be spoiled for you. So this episode was a decent enough episode. It was tense and entertaining, however it did feel kind of like an aside, as it did very little to push the story forward, although I'm sure information given in this episode will be important down the line. It was interesting to get an episode where Five was the central focus. As I stated before, she's my favorite character of the series, so that was cool to see. So this episode begins with 2 and 3 reminiscing about one's death. And I'm glad that they addressed this, and it makes sense that 3 is not all broken up about this because he never actually got along with him, but 2 was actually rather close to him, but she's never been one to be overcome by emotion and sentimentality, so I think her reaction here was perfect. And then we have to deal with the 3 new crew members that they acquired at the prison, which they decide to lock out of all key parts of the ship. At first I found this kind of paranoid and an overreaction, particularly when it comes to the doctor, who seems like an innocent enough guy, but apparently they were right to just trust Rex, but more on that later. So then they have to deal with the damage the android incurred while she was at the prison, where she has to shut herself down for repairs. However, her search for old files accidentally sets off a program that reinstates 2, 3, and 4's memories, which is quite interesting that we got to see who they were before their memories were wiped at the start of the series. However, I didn't quite buy how evil they came across. It seemed to me that it was exaggerated for plot purposes so that they could become the main antagonists of the episode, but it seems like too drastic of a character change for me to buy. However, I did really enjoy the situation that this put 5 in, as she was all alone with 2, 3, and 4 out of commission and the android out for repairs. So she turned to the android's holographic program, but she wasn't that much of a help, and she was hesitant to go to the new arrivals for help, as she didn't know if they were responsible for doing this or not. But eventually she realizes that she has no choice, but of course when 2, 3, and 4 start twirling their mustaches and acting all evil, she has no choice but to trust them. However, she kind of went too far, as it was a bit idiotic to leave Rex on the bridge alone, as the first thing he did was contact that rich woman that we saw in previous episodes that referred to 5 as her asset. We still don't know what she meant by that, but we do know where she's getting her information from, and it's Rex, who apparently is her plant. So that setup is an interesting dynamic, but it's not really explored in this episode. Anyway, it's funny watching that actor in the role of Rex. Of course, I recognize him from playing multiple roles on all 3 Stargate series, as well as Battlestar Galactica, but I'm actually rewatching Stargate Universe at the moment, where he also played a character who was brought on the ship that the main crew didn't trust, so they kept him locked in his quarters. So it's hard for me not to think of these characters as the same person, because they're so similar. But honestly, I think Rex may be a bit more shady and untrustworthy. Anyway, we get to see him in a fight with 2, which he loses, so it's a shame that we didn't actually get to see Nyx take her on again, but that might be coming later on. At any rate, I did find this episode suspenseful, as it ended up being the 3 newcomers versus 3 and 4, where 2 and 5 battle for control over the ship. And the ending conclusion was quite satisfying, but again, I didn't really quite buy how unreasonable and evil they acted just because they were restored to their old lifestyles. Because what we know of their past lives so far, they weren't that bad, such as 3 having a connection with his lover, which they even explored in this episode, and the fact that 4 was framed for murder and didn't actually do anything wrong. I know that they turned into mercenaries afterwards, but I still think the reactions here were a bit over the top and played up for plot convenience. Especially the fact that 2 was starting to buy 5's story. You think that they should have been more open to what she was saying, but whatever. Anyway, the ending conclusion where they had the option of regaining their old memories, it's interesting that they turned it down, and they seem to be acting like they would go right back to being evil again. However, the android mentioned that they would also retain their new memories as well as regain their old ones, so it shouldn't be the same as what just happened, and I think that would actually turn them into new people entirely who have both of these conflicting memories, so they should be more reasonable than the mustache twirling villains. But they still have that option, so I have a feeling they might do this later on down the line. I mean, it was interesting that in the start of the series they'd just been trying to get their old memories back and find out who they were, but now that they can do this, they turn it down because they like more of who they've become. But we'll see if that ever changes. So my rating for I've Seen the Other Side of You out of 10 is a 7, very good. A pretty intense episode that touches on who these people were before they lost their memories, while at the same time setting up the relationship with the new arrivals on the ship. However, I personally thought they went a bit overboard with how evil they acted, but that's just me. So that's it for my review of I've Seen the Other Side of You. Be sure to check back here every week as I continue to review episodes of Dark Matter, and be sure to check out my channel for many more videos on shows like Game of Thrones, Star Trek, Mr. Robot, and more. And be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that. And thanks a lot for watching.